Alright, so had a problem. I've had the skid steer for about 5 years. I'm an admitted novice. And finally threw a track. I was expecting it to happen. I'd done some research online to see what to do when it did happen, because as you can see here, I work out in the woods at a slant, and sometimes multiple slants. And it finally happened. In fact, it's going to happen here in just a minute if you watch carefully. That was the first bump right there, I think. And there we go. It's off. So, came out to check it out, scratched my head a little bit. I'm sure many of you know the tricks to, I've seen where they run over a stick, basically, and twist the skid steer just so that it pops back on, and I'm sure I could have done that. I've been a little concerned watching those videos about additional stress without relieving the tension on the track, so stress on the track itself and stress on the hydraulic drive. So I didn't really want to do that. I'm not in any kind of a hurry as far as this project is concerned, so I had a little bit of time to think. You can see I did some thinking. Believe it or not, that video is not paused. I was just looking at it going, huh, okay. So I tried just a couple of things to try and get it to pop on. You'll see me do that here. Didn't actually work. And then I went home and did some research, and you'll see what I found. Probably could have tried driving it backwards a little bit more to get out of the woods, because it was only off of the one rear idler and then the tracks in between, because I got that far. I didn't actually realize until I was making this video that I had managed to back up like 15 feet with it mostly off. I was concerned it might come all the way off, and then that's a bigger job. So I give up and off to home I go. And this is what I found while I was doing my research and trying to figure out how to do it. I was going to have my wife come up there and have her get into the cab and back up the one, or power the one track, while I'm outside trying to pry it on with a Texas toothpick, my big pry bar. But then I came across this thing, which is from Trackbar Systems. The guy invented it down in Georgia not too long ago. I actually spoke with him directly on the phone when I was looking to try and find a place to purchase them. And it was kind of expensive. Cost me about $600 to get it to me, including shipping. That's actually three of those things. They weigh about 50 pounds altogether, and you'll see how they work. But we ultimately decided that it was going to be worth it, because this is bound to happen again. I have a lot of this kind of work to do, and we decided it would be worth it to get these things, especially if it would avoid a trip to the ER or one of us ending up being maimed in some fashion. So, and it can be done on your own, so I thought I would give it a try. It took probably about a week and a half for them to get to me. I didn't actually order them directly from the inventor of these things, as I found another place where shipping was a little bit less. Got about $50 less, actually. And you'll be able to laugh at me a little bit here. Again, I'm an admitted novice. This is my first skid steer, and I've just been kind of learning along the way. I've tightened up the tracks, but I'd never released the tension on them, I realized once I got into this. So I didn't actually know how to do it. That's part of what I had to research online. I knew I had to loosen a nut, but I wasn't sure what. And on John Deere's, there's a big outer nut that you have to loosen, and you have to loosen it quite a bit. And at the time that this happened, it was cold, and the machine had just been sitting there for a long period of time. I don't know if the grease in the piston that supplies the tension on the track warms up at all during operation. I doubt it warms up much. But regardless, it was cold, the grease is going to be a bit more stiff, and I didn't know how much I needed to loosen that nut in order to get release the grease. As it turns out, you have to release it quite a bit. One note I'll make is that that paper towel that's under there that I kind of tucked in, I had the thought of doing that. I've watched quite a few videos where they release the tension on different brands of skid steers and end up with about a fistful size pile of grease inside that hole, which seemed like it'd be a major pain in the tuchus to clean out. So I put that thing kind of underneath where I knew the grease would be coming, and that actually worked out really well. You'll see in the end I pull it out, and I got out about 90% of the grease. It just landed on that paper towel. I didn't have to do anything but stick it in the trash. So I can recommend that trick. So again, back to me being a bit of a novice here. What I'm doing here is I'm trying to clean out, release the friction on that track, and it was actually stuck a little bit. Without having reviewed the video, I thought it was actually on the spot where the track had come off, but it was about 15 feet down the hill where it actually came off. So I'm just trying to get anything out of the way. Now here you can actually see where we're putting it on, or putting these things on. I did it right the first time and then I changed it later, but you basically want to skip every other rung, like the teeth on the track. And I had changed my mind at one point and I put one of them closer, and that was the wrong thing to do. I think what I was trying to do here was to put it on as close as possible to that idler in the back, and I didn't have enough room to do that. So here I just slip them on. This is how they go on. So they're pretty simple. I'm a big believer, though, in supporting people who invent tools that are useful. So rather than go down to some place and have them try and weld a couple of these up for me, where I could have saved, maybe $100 or $200, or even having done it myself, I like to support the people that invent useful tools, and plus they're patented. So yeah, you need to respect that. You just slip them on just like that. And that's pretty much it. You'll see as we go along here, most of the time that I spent doing this was actually releasing more and more of that nut so that the grease could come out and trying to get the tension off the track. And I primarily did that by backing it up, and with that increased the increased diameter essentially of the track, the inside diameter, because the bars are in place now, that put additional pressure on that piston, the grease piston, and forced grease out. So most of the time was actually me cleaning in and out, looking to see what's going on, releasing more of that nut so that the grease could flow more easily. And now that I know how to do this, I think the whole process, as long as it's not completely off, will take me all of like 10-15 minutes. Even so, with all of this, it took me maybe 35, so it was not bad at all. It was being me by myself. A little bit of effort getting the thing properly supported. And if you stay tuned to the end, I have another caution for those of you who have an older skid steer like mine, and it has a master valve, or the master hydraulic valve that is a little leaky. So when I prop it up on the boom, it slowly sinks, and that's a problem when it's going to block your door while your engine's running. So here again, basically what I did to try and get him to release the grease and release the tension on that track was just kind of ran it backwards. And the whole idea behind these things is once the three of them get up and around whatever thing it's off, the front or the back idler, it assumes that it's going to be on the drive. So one way or the other, you've got to get it onto the drive if it's off the drive. So once the three of them, if I had left them the way they were initially, spaced evenly and in every other sprocket, they would be holding all of those teeth, for lack of a better term, on the track off of and away from the idler. So then you can just scoot it on one way or the other. If it's on the inside of the machine, you can scoot it out. If it's on the outside like mine, you can scoot it in. It just slides on those bars and just right in place. So there's no wrestling with, like I say, I brought my Texas toothpick, at least that's what I call it. It's like a 6-foot tall steel bar that has a tamper on one end and kind of like a chisel on the other end, essentially. I've used it for busting up ice on my driveway in the wintertime, or tamping down asphalt. I'd had it with me, I didn't end up using it at all, except for cleaning out underneath the track. So these segments I just didn't know what I was doing. I decided to leave them in, even though it's a little embarrassing, primarily because I appreciate that for when I find a video and they show more of the process. It helps me to understand it a little more, and perhaps one of you is like me, who is new at this kind of thing, and you want to see the whole thing as opposed to, hey, start and then it worked and then you're done. I want to see a bit of the struggle that goes on in between things, even though in the future, when this happens again, as it assuredly will, I'll be able to handle it better. So pretty much I just was in and out of the machine and kept putting pressure slowly. I would apply forward power and let it squeeze the grease out. If I had it zoomed in on that aperture where the grease is coming out of the piston, you'd be able to see it slowly coming out. And eventually, it does its thing, and I'll be quiet while we watch. I do feel a little silly about this, so I'll put on some silly music. On here I'm cleaning out again underneath the track because I realized it was hanging up on something in there. Again, I thought there's that Texas toothpick I mentioned. And here is where it actually happens. I get up and around that idler, and you can see those first two from going from left to right are properly spaced, and I had the thought to put the other one a little closer, and that was the wrong idea. It needed to be one more rung apart, or otherwise it would have slid right on here as it comes up and around the idler. Doink! There it goes, around the idler. And it kind of went up and around a little bit too far. So what I was looking at was trying to see if I could pry it on there, but it's really not necessary. I realized it was in the wrong spot. had gone a little too far, and that one I moved too close was too close. So back we go. And here's where I thought perhaps I could get it on, but it's still that third one closest to the door of the cab on the right there. It was too close, and one of the teeth on the track was still hanging up on that idler. Again, if I'd left that thing where it was to begin with, on every other rung, it would have worked just fine. And that's actually what they tell you to do if you watch the instructions on the guy's website. I have that link down below. That's what they tell you to do. I don't know what I was thinking. Now here's something though, even with it off one, thunk right there, it's popped into place. And I did not realize that. Here I get out of the cab and I'm just focused on moving the thing back to where it needed to be for it to work properly. So I just get out and I do that. I didn't even really look at the track. I didn't realize that it was done. The job was done. It popped itself right back into place using these things. So I get up and I do it again. I roll it back up on there, and of course I get out and see it and I'm like, yay, it worked. But I did not realize that until I was watching this video that I had already fixed it. Or the tools had done it for me. But I think you get the idea now. These things wrap right up on there. And then you can slide it if you need to. Since this machine was on a slant, just the weight of the track and the fact that those bars are slick, it just slid right back into place. And again, I just wasn't really paying attention to where the track was. I didn't realize it was in its place. I see I had to push the boom up. It's because my valve leaks. I'll show you a sped up version of that at the end if you care to stay and watch that. I'm like looking at it going, wow, it's in place. It's done. I don't have to shift it or anything. If I had been just a little more observant a minute ago, I would have saved myself a couple of minutes of messing around with it, because I was done at that point. Now they're off the idler, ready to come off, and the track is in place. It just needs to be retensioned. And I will again leave most of this on here, even though it's pretty obvious what happened, is just because, again, I appreciate that as a novice myself, when people do that, so I can see a little more of the process and how long it takes and all of that. As you've noticed, a lot of the messing around that I did, I sped up. This part I don't. A little embarrassed about my baggy jeans and aging body. I'm really not quite that wide, but I suppose it is what it is. Getting old. So here that's where I took out that paper towel and pretty much took out almost all of the grease. Just had to wipe it a bit with a paper towel or a rag in there. That's one thing I have learned, is a roll of paper towels and a trash sack are a good thing to have right on hand. Tighten up the nut. And again, just bear in mind, this is the first time I've ever done this, so I didn't know what I was doing. Next time we'll go a lot faster. That's it for that. And then just have to put the cover plate back on. Just cleaning off my tools first. And of course, and I'm sure many of you are familiar with this problem, this is 4 miles from where I have any of my tools, and then frequently I'll be missing something. It's like I came up and I had pretty much everything except for the extension that I needed to get the socket in where it needed to be. So another trip, another day. As this works, I'm doing this, as you can tell, kind of in the fall. Well, it's winter, really. This is late November. And the evening hours are very short. I was working my regular work during the daytime. So I'd get up here and I'd have like 45 minutes to try and figure something out. I think this day when I actually did this, I came up with a couple of hours to spare because I wanted to make sure and get it done. It was going to rain like the next week a lot, and I didn't want to have to be trying to do this in the muck. And as it turns out, it took me about 35 minutes or so total. I was back in gear, and I actually got to play for a little bit. About an hour, cleaning up a lot of the trees and things that I had downed before the track came off. I love my my electric grease gun. I got it when I got the skid steer, realizing how many different grease points there were. And I don't know how people do it without one of these. It would be an awful lot of pumping. Now we're putting the plate on. Cardboard's a wonderful thing also, just for keeping yourself a little clean and not losing your tools in the debris, the leaves, dirt. Makes it a little softer so you don't get up with gravel stuck in your knee or anything like that. That piece of cardboard, I've propped it vertically in between a couple of trees. And I'm just going to leave it there. It gets wet in the rain, then it dries out, and I'm leaving all this blocking up there as well, because I have more of this work to do. And I'll just, not sure if I'm going to bring the tool with me, or the Trackbar tools. I don't think I will. I know where they're at. They're not that far away. And if it pops off, I suppose if it starts happening frequently, or since I'm kind of getting into steeper terrain, then perhaps I'll just bring everything with me that I need to put it back on, so that I can be back in business in 10 or 15 minutes, as opposed to having to run down and get it. It's just they are a little heavy, and hauling them back and forth to my truck is kind of a pain. I don't know. We'll see. Stay tuned for future updates, I guess. So we're just cleaning up, getting all my stuff out of the way. See the wheelbarrow I'm pushing in the background there? This was up a hill, and like I say, I had trees down that I couldn't get out of the way because I needed the skid steer for that. And I couldn't drive my truck up there, so I pretty much had to put my stuff, my tools and things in that wheelbarrow and haul them up the hill, which was kind of annoying. I don't normally drive the truck up there anyway, but I have, I used the skid steer as a nicely powered wheelbarrow with a different implement on the front. Here you can kind of see somewhat of the slant I'm on. That camera's not exactly level, but it's not too far off of level. Yeah, thumbs up. Did it. Yay! Okay, so here's the thing if you stuck around to watch. You can see that leak. Watch that circled area there. The skid steer slowly coming down. Here, I'm repeating this for you a few times. But it's slowly coming down, even though the machine's still running, coming down relative to the boom. And with the implement tilted that way, it's not going to, well, it'll end up blocking the door. Then I would have no way to get in except for crawling over the top of the engine cover through the emergency exit in the back while the engine's still running. So I was cognizant of that. I'm being careful to keep pumping it up. This is some of the work I was doing just beforehand. So you can see the camera is actually pretty well level, so I'm on a slant, going sideways, twisting and turning, so it's no wonder that the darn thing popped off, right? So anyway, I hope you guys find that helpful. I'm going to be keeping these around. I'm glad I made the purchase. I encourage that. The link is below. I don't have any affiliate, I don't get anything from it. It's just for your benefit.